Aloha and welcome. We're going to be talking here about Module 11, the complex world of IT professionals. So we're going to be in part 2 of the CompTIA A Plus Core 2 220-1102. And our objectives are to support customers with professionalism and respect in addition to your technical skills. Describe support systems and documentation that address issues of asset management, network topology, ticketing systems, standard operating procedures, and change management. And also to grasp the complexity of diverse software environments and prepare to work in these environments. So what customers want beyond technical know-how. So an IT support technician should commit to providing excellent service and to treating customers as you would want to be treated in a similar situation. Being prepared includes knowing what customers want, what they don't like, and what they expect from an IT technician. So becoming a competent and helpful support technician. Traits of a competent and helpful technician include the following: be dependable and reliable, show up when you say you're going to show up, keep a positive and helpful attitude. This can be challenging, especially when you're dealing with certain types of people. You can have certain types of people with certain types of attitudes in corporate structures. But it's important to keep a professional, positive attitude. I like to joke around and say that the best way that you can train in this area is to help your parents troubleshoot their computers, because you will have a lot of chance to gnash your teeth and try to explain things as carefully as you can, because I have a personal experience where I provide support for my mother, and often you can't see what they're seeing. So it gives you the chance to really troubleshoot without the visuals, and to try to speak in terms, especially with my mother is in her mid-70s, and discussing things to her when she doesn't have the terminology that I do and doesn't know the jargon. And when you're talking about things like a window, or when you're differentiating between window, screen, apps, and stuff like that, a lot of users don't have that kind of differentiation. So I jokingly say it, but it really is a good idea to speak with older people. Go nice and slow, learn to treat them with the dignity and respect that they deserve, and keep your cool at the same time. It's a great way to train, but don't lose any family relationships over that. It's also important to listen without interrupting your customer. Listen to everything that they say. Let them finish everything. Get their story out. You should use proper and polite language. Like I said, learning to deal with relatives and keep a very positive attitude and use polite language, and not get exasperated when they don't understand exactly what you're referring to, or you don't understand what they're referring to. This is great help. Show sensitivity to cultural differences. Express patience and honor to those with physical disabilities. That's a given. Take ownership of the problem, and portray credibility. Portraying credibility does not mean acting like you know everything. It just means that you should be credible in what you do, and you should be willing to admit when you don't know the answer to a problem. You should be quite open about, gee, this gets to the borders of what my experience, has taught me. So let me pull in so-and-so to assist in this matter. That's always something that you can fall back on as well. Some more traits of a good technician are working with integrity and honesty. Like I said before, be honest to with your customer. Let them know when you've hit the limits of what you can help with, and pull in somebody else that could better assist. You should know the law with respect to your work. That's very important, especially when you're dealing with sensitive data. Behave professionally. This really doesn't need to be said, but it, I guess, does. These are not your friends, they're your customers. You should be behaving in a professional way with them. You should also dress and behave professionally, and you should control your words. Like I said earlier, if you can, help your family, who you're used to being very loose with, and you can control what you say in the most frustrating of circumstances. That will be good practice for dealing with customers. Plan for good service. Don't allow circumstances or personalities to affect your commitment to excellence. Don't let people get under your skin. You need to initiate contact with the customer. Customers expect both technical and interpersonal skills, those soft skills that are going to carry you far in life. When you're answering a phone, do the following. First, identify yourself and your organization. Follow the company policy to obtain the name and number of the caller. And once you confirm that you are authorized to help the customer because maybe they don't actually have support, open up the conversation for the caller to describe the problem. You should prepare for on-site visits by reviewing information about the service call. You should be familiar with the following: the problem that you've got to address, the urgency of it, which computer, what software, and what hardware might need servicing. You need to arrive with a complete set of equipment that can actually do that listed above. You need to greet the customer in a friendly manner and shake hands. If the site is a residence, you should not remain there when only a minor is present. That is probably something that's come about in the last decade or so, but yeah, if there's only a child present, you don't want to be there. You will want to reschedule a drop by when the parents are there. And you should also listen and ask questions of your user. You should interview the customer. As you ask questions, you should take notes. Have the customer reproduce the problem and note each step taken and its results. You should use diplomacy and good manners when you work with a user to solve a problem. Before all this starts out, you should set and meet the customer expectations. It's important to create an expectation of certainty with the customers. You should establish a timeline with your customer for completion of a project, and you should keep the customer informed of progress. This is an extremely important thing. Even if your timeline is going to slip, you should always communicate with your customer. Let them know what's going on and why it's going on. And often you'll find that your customer can be quite forgiving about things that are beyond your control. You should also give the customer an opportunity to make decisions about repairs with guidance from you. Sometimes there are varying levels of repair and varying costs that go with it, and you should let them know about the options and let them do the deciding on that. When you work with a customer on site, you should avoid distractions and don't accept personal calls on your cell phone. That's just not a good idea. You should set your phones to mute actually, and only answer it if it's a work call. And if it is a work call, you need to keep that to a minimum, because if your customer is paying you based on the hour, you really shouldn't be using that time even for work things. So keep that to a minimum. So some few guidelines to follow when you're working at a user's desk. Again, some of these are common sense, but even so, let's talk about it. You should be unobtrusive as possible as you work. If you can work without them, being distracted or by you, that's the best way to do it. You should protect the customer's confidential materials. They may be dealing with data that's confidential. You need to be respectful of that. Don't take over the mouse and keyboard without their permission. This is in person, but also if you're doing a remote thing, you need to be getting permission before you take over mouse and keyboard. You should also ask for permission before you use anything like a printer or other equipment, and you should not use the phone either without permission from them. When you're working with a customer on the phone, phone support requires much more attention and interaction with the customers. You're going to have to visualize what they're seeing without actually being able to see it. And this is where shared terminology or shared jargon really helps. But often you'll find that given different levels of users' experience, you're not going to get that. So you're going to need to really work on that patience here. And as it says, patience is required when dealing with novice users. You'll find that novice users, corporate elites, I'll say, there's a lot of people that don't have the technical expertise that you do, and you need to be respectful of that and be nice and try to try to match the level of the person that you're talking to. And after you've talked with them a bit, you can get a feel for what that is. If your call is disconnected, call them back immediately. Don't eat or drink while on the phone. The only time when drinking would be acceptable is if you're losing your voice or something, but yeah, keep that to a minimum. If the call must be put on hold, tell them how long it'll be before you get back to them. You need to speak clearly and slowly. Also, it is extremely, extremely unprofessional to complain about your job, your boss, coworkers, or your company. Do not talk about any of that stuff, and keep small talk upbeat and positive. So here are some tips when the customer is not knowledgeable. This is quite often. Be specific with your instructions. Put it into simple terms that they understand. As I said before, match their level of understanding. Have customers backup files before you ask them to do anything that might harm the files. Anything that could destroy anything that can destroy data, make backups. Ask the customer what is displayed on the screen to help track the keystrokes. Follow along at your computer. Give the customer plenty of opportunity to ask questions and compliment them whenever you can. This is just a really nice soft skill to have. If the customer can't help you solve the problem without a lot of coaching, you should probably ask them, hey, I was wondering if somebody you work with might be able to better explain that to me. Do it in a way that doesn't offend, but it may be necessary to ask them to have somebody with a little bit more expertise talk to you and explain you through the issue. You should complement the customer's knowledge, experience, or insight. You should slow the, and this is particularly for when a customer is overly confident. They speak fast and they think they understand everything. You should accept that. Recognize their knowledge. Compliment them on that. Slow the conversation down so that you really get the details and go through them one by one in case something is just being blown by. You should not back off from using problem-solving skills. The problem-solving skills that we talked about before, and that also you'll come across in other CompTIA exams, they're very important. They want you to go by a heuristic, set, of things to go by when you're trying to solve an issue. And you're always going to go through, and I think it's even going to repeat it in here, but you identify you interview the customer, you're trying to identify the problem, you attempt it, to attempt the fix. If the fix works, you end up documenting at the end. But there's this specific flow of things that they always want you to go through. So don't let a conversation get you away from going through your problem solving heuristics there. Be careful not to accuse the customer of making a mistake. That won't go over very well. It never does really. Even though the customer might be using technical jargon, do not use jargon back to the customer. Try to keep it, I will sometimes use the same level of, technical words that they do, but there's a chance that they may not actually understand exactly what that means. So so be careful about that. Some things that are technical you can do because it's widely understood, but yeah, just be careful on that point. Here are a few suggestions that can help handle customer complaints. You should be an active listener. You should let the customer know that they're not being ignored. You should really, I say give the impression that you care. Regardless of whether you do or not, you should really, at least try to show that, because if your business is going to last very long, you do need to care, and you need to, take care of their issues. Give the customer a little bit of time to vent, and apologize when you can, but don't be defensive. Often, the work that they're venting about is something you didn't even do, so it's easy not to take it personally. And you can be the little, I'm not sure, not devil's advocate, but you can play the apologetic role without, taking it personally. It's not your fault, honestly. You should know how your employer wants you to handle a situation where you were verbally abused. This can happen. I've seen it happen. If you go into any DMV or anything like that, you'll see plenty of verbal abuse. At the state where I work, we can see that as well. So know what you're supposed to do when you're being verbally abused. If the complaint that's being made is against you or your product, identify the underlying problem if you can. Sometimes simply making progress or reducing that problem for them to a manageable level, it really helps out. It'll reduce their anxiety. They'll give you a little bit of slack while you look at finishing and coming to a full solution. So that buys you a little bit of time. And you should also point out ways you think communication can be improved with the customer. When you think a problem is solved, allow the customer to decide when that service is finished. Let them, fully, accept that, hey, we've come to a conclusion here. Complete the following tasks when before you're closing that call. Reboot the computer, make sure nothing, has caused a problem with the boot. Allow the customer enough time to, kind of poke around, look at things, make sure they're fully satisfied that everything's working. Then you can ask the user to verify any restored data. If they had to back up data in advance, make sure they restore it and make sure it's all there. Then you can review the service call with the customer, say, hey, you had this problem, we did this, because of this, I think that we've resolved your issues. Go through it with them, let them accept it. And then you can explain to them also that preventative maintenance, can be helpful. Give them a little bit of information on what you fixed and, what kind of preventative maintenance could have, helped out there. And every technician does not know how to solve every problem with a computer, as I mentioned earlier. So sometimes a problem needs to be assigned to someone higher in the support chain. Customer support usually has several tiers of help. When the intro tier 1 doesn't, can't handle it, it bumps up to tier 2, then tier 3, and that's just a normal thing. Don't worry about having to pass that on to somebody a little bit more knowledgeable than you. So if that happens, follow through to make sure the customer and new support person have made contact. Make sure that everything's understood before you pass that off, and then follow up later on too. Learn to be a professional when working with coworkers. Remember, you're working as a team to satisfy a customer, so you need to be able to work professionally with them. Put business matters above personal matters at all times. This is extremely important. And keep, again, negative comments to yourself. Customer doesn't need to hear anything. They don't need to observe interpersonal conflicts between the people that have come to service their equipment. Just keep that to yourself. And you should know your limits and be willing to admit when you can't do something. So knowledge check, activity 11.1. When making an on-site service call, what should you do before you make any changes to software or before taking the case off a computer? Well, first you need to listen to your customer, hear everything that they want to do, everything that's going wrong. Try to formulate some kind of an idea of what's happening. If there's anything that is valuable, sensitive data, or if there's a chance that data will be lost, you need to back that up. That's particularly important. Let's see what they say. Ask the user to describe the problem in detail and ask if all data on the hard drive is backed up. Then ask permission to service the computer. The computer and software are the responsibility of the customer, and it's not good business to change anything without permission. That is true. So documentation and support systems. IT departments rely on good documentation and support systems to keep up with the information surrounding IT operations in the entire organization. This part of the module is going to cover types of documentation, support systems you might encounter in your IT career, what is generally expected of you as an IT technician. So yeah, documentation is extremely important because you have, you can go out and Google things and find solutions to problems that you have. And often when this is the first time you encounter something, this is the way you're going to be going about stuff, if it's not something you directly know about. But you can, if you come across a very specific issue, you can Google that, try to find other people who've had that issue and try to fix it specific to your problem. But as you come across this and you realize that this is specific to the software and hardware you're supporting, you'll want to put this into a knowledge base so that you'll the next person that handles that person, even if it's yourself, they're going to be able to go back in here, do some keyword searches and find the exact solution, and they're going to not have to waste all that time looking, hunting, and pecking to find the right answers. So it's very important to keep documentation. So knowledge base is a collection of articles containing text, images, or video that give information about a network, product, or service. Asset management tracks physical and digital assets, including end user devices, networking devices, IP addresses, software licenses, and related licenses. And the asset management software might track the equipment using what we call asset tags and theft prevention plates that contain barcodes that can be easily read by laser scanners. There's also password policy, and network documentation should contain a network topology diagram. And topology simply refers to the pattern of the devices on the network. It's like a diagram, a network diagram. And here is an example of that. This is a star bus network. So you've got the star, you've got the center, and then you've got the different nodes coming out of it. That's called a star, and it's connected by switches here. a backbone, and then it goes to another star, and then backbone over to another star. So one of the first systems you'll learn to use in IT is a ticketing system used to track support calls and give technicians a place to keep their call notes. An initial call for support for help starts the process by creating a ticket, which is a record of the request and what's happening to resolve it. Ticket stays open until the issue is resolved. Support staff assigned to the ticket document progress in the call tracking system. As an open ticket ages, more attention and resources are assigned to it to get it finished. You'll often have KPI, key performance indicators, like in a given amount of time, how many tickets did you solve, or how long did it take from start to completion. Those are some of the KPI that you're going to come across as you're working. So yeah, this is stuff that has to be tracked. Different people have different systems. There's a lot of different systems. We use a system at State called RFA, Request for Action, and it works very similar to this. You have people that initiate it. It gets routed to a certain subgroup of people. Then somebody will assign it to themselves. Then you've got feedback mechanisms to go to the requester and things like that. But these are standard features that you're going to find in a system like this. And here's an example of one, Everything Help Desk. And this is going to help you create, edit, and close tickets. So change management. When a project is implemented, change happens. Change management is closely integrated with project management and often involves the same teams. A change manager might work with the same team to define how the software will affect people. A change manager may also manage all communication, scheduling, training, and support required so the affected people accept and embrace the end result. Embrace is a very important thing. Sometimes they can accept it, but never really embrace it. That doesn't do you any good. So yeah, change manager is very important to this process. And here's the general flow of the change management. You've got the purpose of change, you've got the initial change request. Do you get the CAB approval, which is the board? Then it goes through these different steps here. And then at the end, the determination of whether the change was successful or not. Was the purpose fulfilled? The end user accepted it. Was it on time? Was it on budget? And then it closes out. So documented business processes are related activities that lead to a desired business goal, such as the following: an efficient and cost-effective service, an excellent customer satisfaction, superior product. So the purpose of change, proposed change is formally submitted using a change request form that states what needs to be changed. And if it's complex, if the changes are complex enough, it's going to need to be submitted to a change advisory board, the CAB that was mentioned earlier. So the change plan defines the scope of change, which may outline the following: the key components of the change and how they'll be addressed, the skill sets, the tasks, and the activities required to carry out the change, because that's going to, you're going to have to find those resources throughout your organization to implement that. It's going to, involve the individuals or departments that will participate in that change, how the success of that change is measured, and when the change is completed. And you're going to also have to have risk analysis, because pretty much all change involves risk, and you're going to need to do a risk analysis to identify the potential problems so there are no surprises or crisis situations once the change begins. And then we have the rollback plan. Rollback plans are important because sometimes things don't go as expected. So a rollback plan is going to define the activities needed to recover to the original state in the event of an aborted or failed change implementation. And to gain end user acceptance to the change, users must know the purpose of the change. They need to know why. They also need to know that the leadership of the company agrees with that change. So, like it or not, they're going to have to accept it. They're going to have to know how the change is going to affect them and their job. They also need to need to know how to get their individual concerns and questions about the change answered. They're also going to need to know that they will receive end user training for the changes that impact them. And that's very important. They need to get the training to use whatever has been changed. And then requests for comments, the RFCs, are a request for user feedback to a change, and you should encourage these to be as honest and brutal as possible. So you should also document changes. Everything related to the changes must be documented. Change plans are documented and updated throughout the entire change management process. Many large organizations use change management software such as ChangeGear by Sunview to manage all stages of change management. And smaller organizations may manually document change using Microsoft Word or Excel documents or database software. So you're also going to be working in a diverse software environment. So an IT support technician is going to encounter a variety of hardware platforms, operating systems, and applications. The following section is going to focus on what all operating systems have in common, as well as the diversity you might encounter among the operating systems themselves. So an operating system, OS, is software that controls a computer. All OSs share the four main functions. They provide a user interface, they manage files, they manage hardware, and they manage applications. So every OS offers a command-driven interface, and almost every OS offers one or more graphical user interface, your GUI. And some servers, such as the Linux Ubuntu server, don't always require a graphical interface. And this is an example of what a command-driven interface for the Ubuntu server looks like. So yeah, you're going to need to know all your commands, and you're going to need to know how to do a manual help for to look up different options on everything. So the popular operating systems, most of you have heard of all these, I'm sure. The most popular ones are Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and Chrome OS. Windows by Microsoft is by far the most popular workstation OS in companies. Mac OS by Apple is extremely easy to use, and its desktop interface is intuitive and beautiful. Linux is a secure and extremely stable OS that doesn't take up much space on the hard drive. And Chrome OS by Google is a relatively simple OS that works on personal devices, including tablets and laptops, called Chromebooks. And this is an example of Mac OS right here. It's a bit different from the Windows. You've got a bunch of apps that are right down here on the bottom. It's kind of like the start menu on the Windows. And you've got, this is showing, like over here, you've got your applications opened in Finder, and you've got your system preferences where you find all your, your control settings, essentially. Then Chromebooks, there's a variety of Chromebooks, look something like this, but they're very simple, they're very cheap, lightweight, they have batteries that last forever because it's such a simple operating system, and they're very powerful. They, if you're just doing mail and browser type stuff, Chromebook is perfect for you. You don't need a lot more than that. So how an OS manages hardware. So the OS kernel is the part of the OS that is responsible for relating to hardware by the way of device drivers and or firmware or the hardware. So device drivers are these small little programs that are stored on the hard drive, and they tell the operating system how to communicate with the different hardware devices. So these drivers are installed when the OS is first installed or when you add hardware into your system later on. So firmware is stored on microchips on the motherboard and interfaces, and they're between the motherboard and the operating system. And you can flash firmware and update it over time too. And all modern motherboards use UEFI, the Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. And UEFI is a much improved replacement for BIOS, the basic input-output system from computers of days past. And sometimes you have both of them available on computers, as we discussed earlier. So the motherboard BIOS UEFI provides three functions. You've got the system BIOS UEFI, which contains the instructions for running the hardware devices before an OS is started. Then you've got the startup BIOS UEFI, which starts the computer and finds a boot device that contains the operating system. And then you've got the one that we all mess around in the most, the setup BIOS UEFI, which is used to change the motherboard settings. And in there, you can enable and disable a device on the motherboard. You can change the date and time, and you can select the order of the boot devices for startup BIOS to search. And then we get to the hard drive, the low-level formatting. Low-level formatting is a process. Usually it's performed at the factory. That's where they're going to organize your disk and your space into logical blocks called LBA, the logical block addressing. And the drive is further organized into one or more partitions using one of two partitioning systems. You've got MBR partitions, which stands for the master boot record. And it keeps a map of partitions in a partition table stored at the beginning of the hard drive called the MBR, the master boot record. Then you can have up to 3 primary partitions, also known as volumes. Then you can have a 4th one called the extended partition. That can hold one or more volumes called logical drives. And then you've got GPT, which is the more modern way, and it's the newer globally unique identified partition table, the GUID, but or most people call it GPT. And this is kind of what it looks like. You can see the protective MBR over here, and they've got the primary GPT header, the partition table, and it specifies these 6 partitions. And then it's got a backup of it at the end as well. So if you get this corrupted, you can restore it. So how file systems work. So file system is the overall structure an operating system uses to name, store, and organize files and folders on any storage device. For Windows, a hard drive partition is assigned to a drive letter like C. It's called a volume. Installing a file system on a volume is called formatting the drive or high-level formatting. Every operating system manages a storage device by using directories called folders, subdirectories, and files. And the driver volume is organized with a single root directory at the top of the hierarchical structure of subdirectories. And any directory can have files or other subdirectories listed in it. So it's a big tree structure essentially. And here we have an example of that. You've got the C/, this is the root, and you have different directories under Windows, data, program files. Then under data, you can have business, which would be C/data/business. And then over here, you'd have C. You can also have under data the friends. So you have C/data/friends. And keep in mind that the slashes here, it's the backslash in Windows, and in other systems like Linux and Mac, you're going to have it /. So it's a bit different when you're doing paths. So the drive and directories that point to a location of a file are called a path. And we're going to see an example of that on the following slide. So the first part of the name is the file name. Then everything after the period is called the file extension. The file extension is what the computer keeps track of file extensions and knows what applications to associate with that file extension. So it goes and it looks for that dot. It looks for usually the 3. Normally, it's the 3 letters that follow that, and that stems from the old Windows days. So the file extension indicates how the file is organized or formatted, the type of content in the file, and what program uses the file. And here's what that looks like. So you've got C:\data. So we immediately know this is a Windows system. Data \business \, and letter here is the file name, and then the docx is the file extension. And I said earlier that it used to be 3 letters. Now you'll have like docx or xlsx, and you've also got like mpeg spelled out. So it used to be mostly just 3-letter extensions. Now it's more than that. And there's a variety of file systems you're expected to know for the exam. There's NTFS, the new technology file system. Don't let it fool you. This has been around for 30-ish years now. FAT32 is another one, Windows. There's exFAT, there's XT3, 4, and APFS. So yeah, there's a variety of these file systems you'll need to know. Types of OS installations and upgrades, we've talked about this in the past. If a hard drive is new, a clean install must be installed. If an OS is already installed, you've got 3 choices. You can do a clean install, that's going to be under custom installation. You can do an upgrade, and that's going to keep all your installed applications and data. And you can also do a repair, and that's where the OS is going to go in different tools, and it'll try to repair a corrupt installation. And that will also not erase your data. It's non-destructive. Here, for some odd reason, they have a picture of the Mac about this screen, and you can go up into the top right or top left corner and click on the little app or Apple sign and go down and get this information. So you can go to the about and see all this information on your. It gives you all your hardware information as well as what your latest operating system is. And you can go in and you can do you can click on software update if you've got updates and check if you've got updates available. This is quite some time ago. This is Big Sur. I think they're on, I think it's Sonoma now. So yeah. So to perform a clean install, upgrade, or some OS repairs, you'll need the installation files provided by the operating system manufacturer. For new or corrupted drive, the storage device holding the installation files must be bootable, which means it can be accessed by the BIOS UEFI when you launch the operating system. After the OS is running, it can then launch the setup program to install that new operating system. So vendor end-of-life limitation and product life cycle. This is important to keep track of. Windows, starting with Windows 10, Microsoft extended the life of the OS by providing incremental feature updates. Windows 7 and 8.1 are no longer supported or updated by Microsoft. For Mac OS, the operating system version of Mac can support depends on the age of the Mac. Each version of Mac OS is supported with updates for about 3 years after its release. That being said, I've got a 2019 and it can take the latest Sonoma, so that's 4 years, and I'm happy to see that. Linux, how long a Linux distribution is supported depends on the developer. You've got all kinds of distributions there. You've got Ubuntu, you've got Slackware, you've got Kali, you've got tons of different types. Then Chrome OS is amazing. Google releases a complete Chrome OS update about every 6 weeks. That's a month and a half. And they put out minor updates that are released every 2 to 3 weeks. So for the best results, keep automatic updates turned on. You'll get new software all the time. So our last knowledge check here, which operating system is most appropriate to support a web server on the internet? And we have not talked about this whatsoever in our slide deck, so it's wonderful they have this question in here. Well, when we think about Windows 10 Pro, we know that's a workstation one, so it's really not appropriate for being a web server. There's Ubuntu server, and the word server is right there in the name, so I'm gonna say that sounds pretty good. Chrome OS, we know, is a lightweight system for smaller portables, so I would not say that would be it. And Mac OS, even though you can run something on there, it's not designed for it. So Ubuntu server is the way to go. And there we have our validation. So there it is. So in summary, we should be able to support customers with professionalism and respect in addition to your technical skills. Learn those soft skills that will go, bring you a long way in life. Describe support systems and documentation that address issues of asset management, network topology, ticketing systems, standard operating procedures, and change management. And you should be able to grasp the complexity of diverse software environments and prepare to work in these environments. So that is it for this lesson. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, as always, please feel free to reach out to me. And I will see you when I see you. Bye.